So comping is a new feature to Ableton 11 and its main purpose is really more geared towards recording-based non-electronic music, but it's still a really useful feature. So today we're going to explore how to use comping in a more electronic music workflow. By the way, if you're looking for more workflow-related content, then go grab a copy of our free Ableton Workflow Bible in the description below. So gone are the days where we had to painfully sort of scroll through this long segment of audio and, choose sections and listen to these individual sections, or, something else you could do is perhaps drag this start marker around. It's just a really painful workflow, but comping really solves that problem. So what comping allows you to do is actually view your recorded audio takes in a vertical way. So I've just showed my take lanes here. The command for that is Option Command U. So once I hit Option Command U, it shows my take lanes, and I can use my pencil tool here and just select which take I want, so I can listen back to them. I can also listen back to them over here. And select which take I like the best, and then just hit the command again, and then all of a sudden it's there. So it removes that need to really scroll through and find the best parts. So comping also allows you to splice takes together like this, so maybe one section of each take. And this is an essential part of the workflow when it comes to vocal recordings. When you're recording vocals, you'll do a bunch of recordings and then choose the best ones. The same with things like guitar overdubs if you're recording a guitar solo or something like that. So I'll just hit the record button to demonstrate for you, and I've got my mic routed into this track, and when you hit play, it records it into a new take here, and then when it gets to the end of the loop, it actually makes a new take here as well. I can pause this and go back to the start and hit record again, and that's going to create another take there as well. So I can just really bump in and record from any section that I want, and it's going to create a new take, so you can listen to each section or splice parts together to create the perfect take that you want to use. So when it comes to recording, a great technique, but how do we use comping in electronic music? So the first example I wanted to bring up for you was controlling randomness. So let's have a listen to this randomness track here. So you can see that it is quite random. The notes themselves have been randomized in a way. So this, there's a whole bunch of notes in here that have like a 50% probability whether they'll actually trigger or not. And then in the patch itself, there's a whole bunch of, there's a bit of velocity mapping going on. There's also a bit of sort of random modulation going on. So you can see the wave table and the filters and whatnot are all moving around randomly. So they change each note. Because of this, we're getting this random vibe, but we also want to control the randomness, because otherwise it's just a little bit too random for it to be catchy, for it to be interesting. So just to show you a quick example of some really nice controlled randomness, this is a track from Robert Schroeder. You can see that it's a synth going on in the background. And it sounds quite random, but it's actually very controlled. It's looping over and over, and it gives us this sense of familiarity and expectation. So that's sort of the goal. We want to control the randomness nicely. So let's have a listen to this track in context with the rest of our drums here and our bass. So what I'm going to do here is record the output of this track into a new audio track. So I'm going to get the output here and choose 16 audio, which is the new audio track that we've just made. And then I'm just going to hit record and let it play. So hit record and let's go. So now I can go into the take lanes of this audio clip And then we can choose the best one that we want. Or in this case, what we're going to do is splice sections that we like together. So let's just listen out for sections that were randomly generated that sound nice. And then we're just going to splice them together and then loop them over. So maybe even like you could do something like this. So let's listen to this in context with our rest of our track. So that's a nice section, and then maybe let's just choose a section in here. Okay, so now we have this loop going on. And I want to actually create some variation now because this is just a 2-bar loop. So what I'm going to do is loop this over and then just choose some slightly different parts over in this section. So maybe I can choose a different ending or a different middle section in maybe this one. And then I'm just going to loop this over as well. And then we can do this again and duplicate all of this over again and then choose slightly different sections for this part again. So we're using the randomness to create a whole bunch of different takes, which we're then choosing from and controlling it in a really nice way. So once we're done choosing our parts, we can simply just hide the take lanes, and then we've created this really nice loop that works, and it feels a little bit more catchy than simply just having a complete random generation of notes. What I also wanted to touch on is pretty much the same sort of controlling randomness umbrella, but creating fills as well. So this is often something that I do just to have a little bit of fun, is actually randomly generate some fills. So what I've done here is I've actually got this, I've duplicated the kick track, and then I've just created a few notes right at the end of each bar, and just created some random chants that they're going to play. So sometimes it plays all three, sometimes it plays a few of them. And I've done the exact same thing with the snares as well. Some notes over here, and then just some random chants that it's going to play. And then from this, what you get is a whole bunch of random fills. So let's just have a listen to this little section here. And then in context with our drum loop, it sounds like this. So it's creating randomness in terms of the fills, which is good because it creates some interesting fills that you wouldn't think of, but it's also a little bit too random, and we want to control that randomness. So what I'm going to do is just shorten this loop here, and I've routed both of these tracks into this fills audio track, and then I'm just going to hit record and let it play again. So now when I show the take lanes, I've got a whole bunch of these fills, but what I'm going to do is actually just separate these fills out because they're happening a little bit too often. So I'm going to make it happen every second time instead of every bar, every 2 bars instead. And then I'm going to choose the fills that I want for each little section here. So I can go through and click on this one, have a listen. That's kind of nice. That's pretty cool. And now I can choose this one. So now I've chosen some fills here, and again, if you want more variation, you can loop all of this over and then choose some slightly different fills over in this section over here as well. Okay, so another way to use comping is more in an experimental way. So what I've got here is this instrument track, and this is routed into this track, into this audio track here. I'm going to be recording the audio from this track here. So I've got this track here and I'm recording the audio in here, right? And I've just set up, it's just like a bass track that I'm going to make some wubs on. And I've just set up a whole bunch of modulation going on from the LFOs, modulating oscillator positions, and a little bit of filter frequency stuff as well. And so I'm just going to hit play here. I've also got some electro drums in the background, just to give me a little bit of a placeholder for time. And I'm just going to hit play here and mess around. And now comping allows me to choose sections of the take that I've just sort of randomly generated and have a little bit of fun putting together a nice little loop here. So maybe we could. I've done a little bit more experimenting now, and I've come up with this little loop here. And as always, we can choose a slightly different section to give us a little bit of variation. Or even I could duplicate a section from over here, sort of like paste that in there. So I've created this really nice bass here that I actually really like. It's a really wubby, sort of dark bass line, but created out of complete randomness and experimentation, and then using comping to just harness that experimentation in a really nice way. So before we wrap up, I wanted to quickly explain as well that you can use this for MIDI also, and this is probably one of the most often ways that I use comping. So I've got a patch that I like, right, that I'm going to use for this track here, but I'm just going to experiment around with the actual playing and the notes of it. So I've got everything ready to go. I just need to hit record and then sort of play around. And so this really just gives me the time to experiment around and then have all these different takes that I can listen back to and then also splice together if I find little sections that I like out of each one. So let's say this section here is really nice, and then let's see what this sounds like when I put it with this section here as well. So you could also do this with melodies, you could also do this with audio, and there's so many different things that you can do and just sort of splice different melodies together to create interesting, dynamic, different melodies that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of yourself. So this is a really powerful way to bring a little bit more creativity to your production sessions, and it's also just a really fun technique. So like always, I really do suggest that you watch a video like this and then pull up your DAW and really experiment around with this technique yourself. And if you do this and find any cool creative ways to use comping which I haven't covered, leave them in the comments below and I'll definitely have a go at them myself. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.